Hello and welcome to the Paletteful Packs YouTube channel. My name is Alice and today I have the August 2024 Paletteful Packs Premiere Pack here in front of me. And as you can see, we have a lot of stuff in here. So let's go ahead, open it up and see what is inside. Ooh, inks! Oh my gosh, so pretty. Okay, so let's pull everything out and we can take a look and see what we have in here. Okay, so the first and obviously biggest thing that we're seeing in here is this set of 5 Ecoline watercolors. They come in this gorgeous, super sturdy plastic, clear plastic like container. You can pop the top off. There we go. And then here are all of our colors. So we're gonna get, like I said, 5 colors. We're gonna get 507, which is a blue color. We're gonna get 311, which looks like kind of an orange peach. We're going to get 205, which is obviously a yellow, a nice orange red, 236. And then 337, which is this beautiful pink looking color. So this is a gorgeous palette. It's giving me very like sunset vibes. So I'm really excited to play around with these. Watercolor inks are really fun to use and they're so versatile. You can create so many effects with them. So let's move this over to the side and see what else is in here. I'm seeing some brushes, very important for the inks. So we have 2 brushes in here. We're going to have a Robert Simmons Sapphire Round 2. So that's this little guy here, perfect for details, all of that good little work. And then we have this larger brush. It's a Robert Simmons size 10 round. This is gonna be good for washes and for laying out larger areas of color. Then finally in here, we have the Travel Watercolor Pad by Strathmore. This is 140 pounds. It's gonna come with 200 sheets. It is a pad, so it's glued on one side and then you can kind of flip through. These are great because they're really easy to peel off the pages. So Strathmore watercolor paper is great. This is 100% cotton cold press, so it's going to work perfectly with these watercolor inks. Finally, we have our cute little palette as a sticker in the black and white kind of version. Okay, so this is everything we're going to get for this month. This month, we're getting a lot of really high quality supplies. We're getting these Ecoline liquid watercolors. Like I said, these are super saturated and pigmented. They are dye-based and they do dry within like minutes, so they're really fast to dry. These also have a little pipette in them so you can kind of drop stuff. Then we also have our 2 Robert Simmons brushes, both rounds, the size 2 and the size 10. And then we have our Strathmore watercolor travel pad. So I can't wait to play around with these. Let's go ahead and make some swatches, play around, see how they blend, and then we'll dive into the art. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting the watercolor inks out in this cute little palette shaped like a rose. So I'm just using the convenient little dropper to drop these in here. And as you can see, the colors are really bright, even just like when you drop them in, and you can kind of see the translucency of them, which is really cool. The yellow especially, you can really see the translucency of. So I'm gonna start with some little swatches just to play around with the blending, see how they work, and really see what the color palette I'm working with is and what it looks like when it's on paper. So just adding those swatches and then blending them out with a little bit of water at the end to test around with some blending. And these colors I think are so beautiful and really do give me sunset vibes. I didn't paint a sunset, but I feel like I definitely could with these colors. I also played around with some wet on wet, filling in a little square of water and then dropping in paint just to see how they would blend and merge together and play around with some textures, kind of see what happened when you drop things in, when you splatter water on top, how that works. I just kind of wanted to get a good idea of the different things that I could do with this paint before I went in on my actual painting. And I always recommend people do this, play around with your different color combinations, your different mixes, how things blend when they're dry, all of that good stuff so that you really have a good idea of what the paints are going to do when you actually go in with them. I'm starting with a quick sketch, just using a regular pencil, sketching out this little fishy that I want to draw. I found a fish that was orange and blue, so I thought it would be really appropriate for the color palette. So I went ahead and sketched that little guy out, just kind of taking my time on this. I wanted him to look, you know, pretty decent, so I spent a little bit of time on the sketch, making sure the proportions were looking okay. But fish are pretty easy to draw, so it was pretty relaxing and very chill to kind of do the sketch. It's been a while since I've sketched before I painted, so this was fun. Went in with a needed eraser to just kind of fix a couple things up before I went in with the paint, and then it was time to add in the paint. So giving him a little eye actually, and some stripes first. I apologize. It was not time to add in the paint. It was time to add in the stripes. So we're adding in the little stripes, and this is kind of the part where, a little spoiler alert, I did have some issues with the stripes. So you kind of see what happened a little bit later on in the video with the stripes, but they just kind of came out a little bit less clean than I would have liked, but I still think the picture itself came out pretty cute. And I'm pretty much done with the fishy now after adding in all of those stripes. So I'm going to add in a couple little background elements, just a couple strings of kelp in the background, just to kind of give him an environment to swim in so that he's not just hanging out in the middle of the page alone. I just thought that I would use these as a nice directional way to kind of point inwards towards the fish, and also kind of as a mirror of the stripes on the fish. It just kind of visually mirrors it with the shapes. Then I went in and used a wet on wet technique. So I went in and filled the entire background up with water. As you can see, my water's not perfectly clean, but that's okay. And then I started going in with the blue. I did miss the first few seconds of recording this, but I pretty much just put blue paint on the wet paper. And then I started adding in some yellow so I could get more of a blue-green color. So I'm really just kind of dropping in the colors. I'm not mixing them before I put them on, because I really want to keep this loose and have a lot of different colors, mixes, and textures in the background. I'm really planning on playing with texture and color in the background, so I'm just kind of working really loosely and dropping colors in. I wanted to make this a little more green, so adding in a little bit more yellow, and then just dropping color straight on there. I felt like I needed more bright and saturated blue, so I just dropped it straight on there and started painting that out and going up to the edges, kind of trying to keep it a little bit cleaner at those edges, which is kind of difficult, especially working wet on wet, but I feel like I managed to mostly pull it off. And as you can see, things are blending out and blurring out in such a cool way. I also splattered some water on top, which creates a really cool star-like effect, and you'll see me do this a lot. And I dabbed up some of the excess with a paper towel. Then I added in some red or orange, one of the two, at the bottom to kind of counteract the blues and the greens and darken it up so that I could add a little bit of shading. I also went and used that kind of orange color mixed with the blue to get a darker green that I could go ahead and establish where some of the kelp was. And then I just painted with water to pull in some lighter areas of kelp streakiness, splattering on more water again. And then once I was a little bit more dry, I went in with a finer brush and just kind of added in a little bit more kind of detail with some yellow. As you can see, I'm kind of adding it on the paper. It's about medium wet right now. It's not soaking, but it is wet. And that color is just kind of pushing away all of the other color. It's really cool to see, and it's a really fun technique that you can use with these watercolor inks. So definitely recommend trying this kind of technique. It's really interesting, and I love the effect that it gave and the texture that I got in the background of this piece. Very happy with that. Then came time for the fishy. So I made my first mistake here, which is that I did not wait for the background to fully dry. So things started bleeding along the edges, and that's something I fought with pretty much the entire time. Part of it was impatience, part of it was just a little too much layering, but most of it was impatience, and I just don't think I was waiting long enough for the paper to dry. And so a lot of things got kind of blurry, but I started out with the yellow to orange, and as you can see, you can get such beautiful smooth gradients with these inks. They just kind of blend themselves, which is really cool. I put in the blue. I felt like it mixed with the orange a little bit and it was a little bit duller. I think that my paint that I had been kind of pulling from had kind of gotten some orange mixed in it, so it had gotten a little duller than it actually was. So I probably should have refreshed my paint before I put in the blue, but started putting in the blue and then using the red to build up a little bit more shading on his little face and down at the bottom. And I was really happy with how the yellows and oranges were coming out on this guy. I felt like they were really, really vibrant and worked really well for a tropical fish. So super, super happy with that. So just working on blending blending, adding in some more gradients, and I'm still working in kind of a wet on wet fashion. And you can kind of see that effect where the edges is kind of blurring out both into the fish and out into the background, which is an effect that I haven't decided if I like or not yet. So you'll have to let me know in the comments what you think about that effect, if you like it or if you dislike it, because I have not yet decided how I feel. I made a darker orange by adding in a little bit of the blue to the red and a little bit of pink, and then going in with that just to add some darker shading. And then my head's gonna get in the way quite a bit when I work on the details, so I apologize for that. But I'm going in with more blue and then tapping it off so that it's like lighter but still kind of bright. And then at this point I got some fresh blue because I think I realized that that might have been part of my problem, and you can definitely see a difference there. And I'm going in with the blue kind of on the center, tapping it off again so it's a little bit lighter. And then while I'm trying to wait for it to dry, I'm going in with the background and kind of doing a little bit more kelp and bringing that back, making it darker. I'm not really adding too much shading in it necessarily, like a little bit, but mostly I'm just kind of creating these dark shapes that are kind of hanging out behind Mr. Fishy here. So that just kind of adds a little bit of depth to the painting. And it's really cool how many different varieties of greens and blues you can get with just this one blue, just by mixing it with either the yellow, the red, the orange, or the pink. You get different varieties of kind of like greens with pretty much every single way. Actually, if you mix with the pink, you get purple, but it's definitely a really interesting and fun color palette to work with. Also used the blue to make a kind of dark blue with some of the orange and went in with that to create a little bit more variance in the kelp. And then waited for everything to dry and went in with a little bit more shading, trying to get a little bit sharper shading in here. But I was just kind of having a hard time staying in the lines. Again, that's a me problem. And because I couldn't really stay in the lines and I was getting water kind of along the edges, things would blur out because these paints reactivate really, really easily. So this definitely something to keep an eye on, but it's also really nice how well they reactivate. You can really go in and blend things even after they've dried, which I really appreciate. Definitely made it nice to be able to get some like smooth blends on this little fishy here. And I'm just continuing to build up the shading on him so that he looks three-dimensional, and trying to add in some more like orange to kind of push away some of the blue, and then starting to add in a little bit of kind of like shading to the blue. So it was like blue, and then they had these like darker black areas around the edges, so it's kind of like lighter in the center. So I was trying to kind of get that, adding in a little bit of scale detail here on the blue area. Nothing too complicated because I felt like I was going to muddy it up, and at this point I felt like I had been, I was just like getting frustrated, so I was just like, keep it simple, just go in, get the edges, and it's all going to be okay. So I went ahead and did that. Started putting in the edges, and this is kind of where my last kind of big mistake happened, and I just don't think I waited for the paper to dry enough, because as you can see, it is bleeding out like crazy. So really make sure that your paper is fully dry if you're working wet on wet and you need like crisper lines. This paper, I think because it's 100% cotton, really holds onto water, which is amazing for working wet on wet, but just make sure that it's fully dry when you want those sharper lines. So learn from my mistakes. Filling in the center with blue and then tapping it off just to make it even more of a bright blue. And we're getting close to being finished here. I did actually, upon finishing this, go around the edges with a black pencil. I decided not to keep that in because I really regret doing it. I think it kind of ruined the piece, and we're just going to look fondly back on the piece as it was before I added in the black pencil, just pure watercolor. So that's kind of how the piece is going to end, because I definitely ruined it a little bit, but I think that even with the blurring, it still looks pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think it came out pretty cute. So that's my fishy. I hope that you guys like him. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you'd like to get your own Paletteful packs, then click the link in the description box and come join the Paletteful Packs fam. Get an awesome box filled with cool art supplies every single month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye!